The alarms screamed through the narrow corridors of the asteroid mining colony, a shrill cacophony that shattered any semblance of routine. Miners dropped their tools, eyes wide, as the voice of the colony's AI resonated in every earpiece. Incoming threat detected. All personnel prepare for contact. Dust shook from the ceiling as vibrations ran through the colony's metal bones, a familiar sensation, but today it felt different, ominous. Amidst this chaos, Captain Alara Voss sprinted down the main corridor, her boots clanging against the steel floor. She skidded to a halt at the control room, where her team was already buzzing with frenetic energy. "What the hell is going on?" she barked, eyes darting to the main screen. "It's the Exithar," replied Dex, her second in command, his voice barely masking the tremor of tension. "They've deployed an empathy field." Alara's heart skipped. The Exithar, masters of psychological warfare, had turned empathy into a weapon. A pulse that could turn even the most resilient minds into a chaotic storm of emotions. "Brace yourselves, everyone. Remember your training," she commanded, her voice steady despite the turmoil bubbling inside. Glancing at the screen, Alara watched as the alien ships, sleek and shimmering with a malevolent elegance, drew closer. "What do they want?" she muttered, though deep down she knew. The Exithar sought control, not through brute force, but by unraveling the human mind. The colony shuddered again, a low hum settling over the room as the empathy field enveloped them. Around her, Alara's team shifted uncomfortably, some clutching their heads, others whispering anxiously. She could feel the edges of her own consciousness fray, emotions she thought buried long ago clawing to the surface. "Hold on," she shouted, refusing to let the fear take root. "They think they've got us beat, but they don't know us." Her words hung in the air, a defiant promise. Suddenly, the main console flickered, then crackled with static before a voice, soothing yet insidious, filled the room. "Humans," it began, "we offer you peace through understanding. Surrender, and your fears will dissolve." Alara gritted her teeth. The offer was a velvet glove hiding an iron fist. "Dex, start the countermeasures," she ordered, determination hardening her gaze. Dex nodded, fingers flying over the controls. "Activating emotional dampeners," he reported, eyes locked on the screen. Moments stretched into eternity as the colony's systems hummed, fighting back against the alien intrusion. Alara could feel the pressure ease, her mind clearing, yet the battle was far from over. Then, an unexpected jolt rocked the colony, sending Alara sprawling to the deck. "What now?" she shouted, scrambling to her feet. "They're boarding us," Dex yelled back, panic creeping into his voice. "The Exithar are coming aboard." Alara clenched her fists, a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "All right, let's show them what we're made of," she declared, rallying her team as they prepared to defend their home. The doors hissed open, and the first of the alien invaders stepped through, their eyes glinting with an arrogant confidence. But they had underestimated humanity's resilience, a mistake they would soon regret. The command center was a storm of flashing lights and harried voices, as though the Empire's very heart had been struck by a cosmic asteroid. Admiral Vale stood at the helm, his presence a raging tempest of steadfast determination and barely concealed panic. The holographic display in front of him projected a grim reality: the Empire's outer colonies were dropping from the grid one by one, like stars winking out in the night sky. "Status report." Vale's voice cut through the chaos, sharp and unwavering. Lieutenant Rivera, her face a mask of weary resilience, turned from her console, her eyes betraying a glint of desperation. "Admiral, we've lost contact with New Elysium and the Delphian Belt. Reports of civil unrest are streaming in from Mars and Luna. The AI's predictive model suggests a 78.4% probability of widespread rebellion within the next 72 hours. Vale's jaw tightened. "And the fleet?" "The fleet is scattered, sir," Rivera replied. "We've recalled as many ships as possible, but the comms blackout is making coordination nearly impossible." He nodded, his mind working at a feverish pace. The Empire's foundations were crumbling, and the enemy, unseen and insidious, was exploiting every fracture. "Lieutenant, initiate Protocol Bastion. We need to consolidate our forces and secure the core worlds at all costs." Rivera hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing her features. "But sir, if we abandon the outer colonies..." Vale cut her off, his voice a razor of urgency. "If we don't hold the core, there won't be an empire left to save." Now move. As Rivera relayed his orders, Vale turned his attention back to the holographic map, his thoughts a turbulent sea of worry. The collapse had begun with whispers of dissent, fueled by economic strife and overextended colonial policies. But the rapidity of the Empire's unraveling suggested something more, something orchestrated. Admiral Vale. The voice was smooth, almost too calm for the present chaos. It belonged to Kai, a representative of the enigmatic data syndicate. Vale's relationship with the syndicate was tenuous at best. They were allies of convenience, wielding information as their weapon. Kai, if you've got any good news, now would be the time. Kai's expression was unreadable, his eyes dark and probing. Our analysis indicates a coordinated strike by an unknown entity. They're leveraging advanced cyber warfare capabilities to disrupt communications and control systems. Vale felt a chill creep up his spine. Do you have any leads on who or what we're dealing with? Kai's silence was all the confirmation Vale needed. He was about to press further when the room's tension escalated another notch. A tactical officer shouted over the din, incoming transmission from the Goliath. Priority 1. The Goliath was the Empire's flagship, a behemoth of engineering and firepower, its presence a symbol of unyielding strength. Vale accepted the transmission, and the flickering visage of Captain Elena Dre materialized before him. Her eyes were as fierce as ever, but haunted by shadows of something more. Admiral, we've engaged with an unknown fleet just outside the Jovian orbit. They're using stealth technology we've never encountered. We can't get a lock on them. Vale's fists clenched involuntarily. Hold your position, Captain. Reinforcements are en route. Dre's expression hardened. Admiral, their tech is beyond anything our sensors can handle. We're outmatched. Hold on as long as you can, Vale urged, his voice a blend of command and plea. You're not alone in this. The transmission cut, leaving Vale with a gnawing sense of dread. The enemy was shadow and silence, a ghostly adversary striking where the Empire was most vulnerable. And now, the Goliath's distress call added another layer to the unfolding nightmare. Admiral, reports are coming in from the civilian sectors, Rivera announced, her voice strained. Panic is spreading, and there's talk of a mass exodus from the core worlds. Vale's mind raced. An exodus would be catastrophic, a mass fragmentation that could splinter the Empire beyond repair. He needed a plan, something to quell the rising tide of chaos. And then it struck him, a gamble, yes, but possibly the Empire's only chance. He turned to Kai, his eyes alight with grim resolve. Kai, I need the Syndicate's help. We have to broadcast a message, a call to arms, to every corner of the Empire. We need to rally the people, remind them of what we're fighting for. Kai raised an eyebrow, the faintest hint of a smile playing at his lips. A bold move, Admiral. But the Syndicate thrives on boldness. Consider it done. As Kai set to work, Vale felt the weight of 1,000 worlds pressing down upon him. The stakes had never been higher, and the clock was ticking. He could only hope that when the dust settled, there would still be an Empire left to save. Meanwhile, aboard the Goliath, chaos reigned supreme. Captain Dre stood amidst the cacophony of alarms and shouted orders, her mind a whirlwind of strategy and survival instinct. The enemy ships moved like phantoms, elusive and deadly, their barrage relentless. Status, she barked, her voice cutting through the tumult. Shields at 60% and dropping. Came the reply, we've lost engines 3 and 4. Damage control teams are struggling to keep up. Dre gritted her teeth. They were being picked apart, piece by piece. Yet, in the heart of the storm, a fierce determination burned within her. She would not let the Goliath fall, not without a fight. Helm, bring us about. Target the lead vessel and fire at will. The ship groaned as it maneuvered, its weapons blazing a furious counterattack. In the chaos, Dre's thoughts flickered back to Vale's words, a reminder of unity, of fighting for something greater than themselves. All hands, prepare for boarding defenses, Dre commanded, an idea taking root amidst the turmoil. If they want a fight, we'll give them one. As the Goliath continued its defiant stand, the message from the data syndicate began to spread, a clarion call echoing across the Empire. In every city and colony, on every ship and station, Vale's voice rang out, a beacon in the darkness. This is Admiral Vale. The Empire faces an unprecedented crisis. But we are more than just systems and fleets. We are a people, united by our shared history and dreams. Stand with us now, and together, we will weather this storm. The words rippled across the vast expanse of human space, kindling a fire in the hearts of those who heard them. In the burgeoning chaos, there was a spark of hope, a fragile, flickering flame, but a flame nonetheless. And then the enemy revealed its hand. It started as a whisper, a flicker on the edge of perception, but swiftly grew into a crescendo of violence. Saboteurs, hidden within the Empire's own ranks, struck with ruthless efficiency. Key installations were compromised, vital systems disabled, and fear spread like a virus. Vale watched in horror as reports flooded in, power grids failing, supply lines severed, vital infrastructure crumbling. The Empire was being torn apart from within, and the enemy was no longer content with the shadows. "Admiral, we're detecting an energy surge," Rivera announced, her voice laced with dread. "It's coming from the old Nexus Array." Vale's blood ran cold. The Nexus Array was a relic, a remnant of a bygone era, its purpose long forgotten. But in the wrong hands, it could be a weapon of unimaginable power. "We need to shut it down," Vale declared, his decision made in an instant. "Assemble a strike team and prepare for immediate deployment." Rivera nodded, her resolve mirroring his own. As she set to work, Vale turned to Kai, who was watching the proceedings with an inscrutable gaze. "Do you have anything to add?" Vale asked, aware of the Syndicate's penchant for secrets. Kai's smile was enigmatic. "Admiral, I believe you'll find that the key to victory lies not just in force, but in understanding the enemy." Vale couldn't suppress a wry chuckle. "Wise words, Kai, but right now, I'll settle for stopping that array." With the strike team ready, Vale took a moment to survey the command center. The chaos had not abated, but beneath the surface, a new determination was taking hold, a resolve born from adversity, fueled by the fire of human spirit. As the team prepared to depart, Vale's thoughts turned to the future. The enemy was formidable, its capabilities vast and terrifying. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was a glimmer of hope, a belief that humanity would endure, that the Empire would rise from the ashes. And as the Goliath continued its desperate stand, the battle for the Empire's soul raged on, a maelstrom of chaos and courage, of despair and defiance. The Nexus Array loomed ahead, a monolithic structure against the void. The strike team's shuttle sped toward it, its path fraught with danger. Commander Ellis led the team, his mind a focused blade, cutting through the chaos. "Remember the plan," Ellis spoke, his voice steady and commanding. "We get in, disable the array, and get out. No heroics." The team nodded, their expressions grim but resolute. They were the Empire's finest, each one a testament to human tenacity and skill. And as they approached the array, each knew the stakes. Failure was not an option. Inside the array, the corridors were a labyrinth of shadows and silence, the air thick with an oppressive tension. The enemy was here. Ellis could feel it, a predatory presence lurking in the dark. "Move out," he ordered, leading the team deeper into the complex. Every step was a battle against uncertainty, but their resolve was unshakable. As they advanced, the enemy struck. Saboteurs emerged from the shadows, their attacks swift and deadly. The team responded in kind, their training and unity a bulwark against the onslaught. Amid the chaos, Ellis spotted their objective, the control room, a fortress of technology and power. "Cover me," he shouted, charging forward with singular purpose. The battle raged around him, a tempest of fire and fury. But Ellis pressed on, his focus unyielding. The future of the Empire rested on his shoulders, and he would not falter. With a final push, he reached the controls. His hands danced across the interface, a symphony of precision and speed. The array's systems flickered, a cascade of light and sound, and then fell silent. "Array shut down," Ellis reported, his voice a mix of relief and triumph. Mission accomplished. The team regrouped, their victory a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. But as they made their way back to the shuttle, Ellis couldn't shake the feeling that the enemy had yet to reveal all its cards. Back on the Goliath, the tide of battle was shifting. Dre's strategy had bought them time, and now, with the array neutralized, the enemy was on the defensive. But the fight was far from over. "Admiral, we've regained partial control of the comms network," Rivera reported, her face a mixture of exhaustion and determination. "The enemy's grip is weakening." Vale allowed himself a moment of hope, but it was fleeting. The enemy was still out there, a formidable adversary with unknown motives and resources. As the Goliath continued its defiant stand, the Empire held its breath, teetering on the edge of oblivion. The battle for survival was far from over, and the outcome remained uncertain. Yet, in the heart of the storm, a truth endured. Humanity was resilient, and against all odds, they would fight for their future. The Empire's fate hung in the balance, a precarious dance of chaos and courage, of shadows and light. And as the final act of the crisis unfolded, the question remained: would they emerge victorious, or would the stars themselves bear witness to the Empire's fall? The celestial armada of the Empathox Empire loomed ominously over the remnants of Earth's fractured space colonies, casting an iridescent pallor across the debris-strewn void. Like a phantasmagorical tapestry, their ships wove through the wreckage, ensnaring every last vestige of human resistance with an unearthly precision. The Empathox, with their terrifying ability to weaponize empathy, had turned humanity's greatest strength into its most terrifying vulnerability. Inside the crumbling walls of the last human bastion, a makeshift command center buzzed with chaotic energy. The air was thick with the acrid smell of fear and determination. Captain Alara Mendez stood at the center, her eyes darting across the holographic display that mapped the battlefield in real time. Her mind raced, trying to anticipate the next move of an enemy that seemed to know their thoughts before they'd even had them. "Captain," Lieutenant Jiro Tanaka's voice cut through the din, tinged with an edge of desperation. "We've lost contact with the Europa outpost. It's like they just surrendered. No distress signal, no fight. It doesn't make sense." Alara clenched her jaw, frustration and helplessness roiling within her. "It's the Empathox," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. "They're not just reading our emotions, Jiro. They're amplifying them, manipulating them to make our people turn against themselves." Jiro's eyes widened, a flicker of fear crossing his face. "So, they're making us feel what they want us to feel?" That's monstrous." Alara nodded. "They're playing God with our emotions. They understand us better than we understand ourselves. Our strengths, our fears, they're using everything against us." As if to punctuate her words, the room shuddered violently, the holographic display flickering as another section of their defenses crumbled under the Empathox onslaught. A sense of impending doom settled over the room, as palpable as the low hum of the ship's life support systems struggling to keep them alive. In a corner, young Ensign Mira Patel furiously tapped at her console, trying to bypass the Empathox's interference and re-establish communication with the scattered human forces. Her fingers danced over the keys, sweat beading on her forehead, her dark eyes focused with fierce determination. "I've got a partial signal from Mars base," she announced, her voice a lifeline in the encroaching darkness. "They're holding, but morale is plummeting. They're asking for orders." Alara exchanged a glance with Jiro, a silent understanding passing between them. "Tell them to hold fast, Mira. We'll find a way through this." The words felt hollow even as she spoke them, but they were necessary. Hope, even the fragile illusion of it, was a weapon they couldn't afford to lose. Suddenly, the room was plunged into silence, the oppressive quiet more terrifying than any explosion. The holographic map blinked out, the glow of dying screens casting eerie shadows across the tense faces of the command crew. An unseen presence seemed to fill the space, an alien consciousness brushing against their minds like an insidious whisper. "Humans," the voice resonated through their thoughts, a sonorous blend of empathy and malice. "Your resistance is futile. We offer you understanding, unity. Embrace it, and you shall know peace." Alara staggered under the weight of the intrusion, her mind reeling as the Empathox attempted to worm their way into her psyche. She could feel their presence, probing her memories, her fears, her hopes. For a moment, she felt an overwhelming urge to surrender, to capitulate to the seductive promise of peace. But beneath the onslaught, a flicker of defiance sparked within her. The memory of her family, of Earth before the collapse, of humanity's indomitable spirit. With a monumental effort, she pushed back, erecting mental barriers against the encroaching empathy. "Get out of my head," she snarled, her voice raw with determination. "We won't give in." The presence recoiled, retreating from her mind like a shadow fleeing the dawn. The lights flickered back to life, and the holographic display sputtered back into existence, albeit dimmer than before. Jiro let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding, his relief mirrored in the faces of the crew. But the reprieve was temporary. The Empathox would be back, and they needed a plan. "We're outmatched, Alara," Jiro said quietly, his voice barely audible over the renewed clamor of the command center. "They're in our heads. How do we fight that?" Alara's gaze swept the room, taking in the weary faces of her crew. They looked to her for strength, for guidance, and she couldn't let them down. "We use what makes us human," she replied softly, more to herself than to Jiro. "They may understand our emotions, but they don't understand our will. Our unpredictability. We'll use that against them." As if summoned by her resolve, a new plan began to form in the back of her mind, nebulous yet promising. She turned to Mira, who had resumed her frantic work at the console. "Mira, can you rig a signal to mask our emotional signatures?" Mira's brow furrowed in concentration, her fingers never pausing. "I can try. It won't be perfect, but it might be enough to confuse them for a little while." "Do it," Alara ordered, her voice firm. "Jiro, coordinate with the other bases. Tell them to prepare for synchronized maneuvers. We'll hit them where they least expect it." As the crew sprang into action, a sense of unity began to coalesce amidst the chaos. They were battered, beleaguered, but not broken. Not yet. Meanwhile, in the shadowed recesses of the command center, Dr. Isaac Voss, the team's lead xenobiologist, watched the proceedings with a calculating gaze. His fascination with the Empathox bordered on obsession, and their ability to manipulate empathy was a puzzle he was determined to solve. He moved closer to Alara, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. "Captain, I've been analyzing the Empathox's neural patterns," he began, his eyes alight with a fervor that belied the dire circumstances. "I believe there may be a way to turn their own weapon against them." Alara's interest piqued, though she remained wary. "Go on." Isaac gestured toward the display, his mind already racing ahead. "They understand our emotions, yes. But they've never experienced them. If we can overload their senses with raw human emotion, it might disrupt their control. It's risky, but it could give us the edge we need." The idea was tantalizing in its audacity. Yet, it also carried the risk of backfiring spectacularly. Alara weighed the options, the ticking clock of humanity's survival beating ceaselessly in the background. "Work with Mira," she decided, her tone resolute. "See if you can devise a way to broadcast those emotions, but keep it controlled. We can't afford another slip-up." Isaac nodded, a gleam of determination in his eyes. As he moved to join Mira, the two quickly became engrossed in their task, their collaboration a testament to the resilience of the human spirit under pressure. Elsewhere, amidst the chaos, bonds were forming and strengthening. Jiro and Mira, once mere colleagues, found solace in one another's presence. Their shared determination birthed an unspoken connection, a promise that they would stand together against the encroaching darkness. The hours stretched on, the situation growing more dire with each passing moment. The Empathox's ships continued their relentless advance, their presence a constant reminder of the looming threat. Yet, within the beleaguered human forces, a quiet resolve was taking root. As Alara watched the data stream across the holographic display, a flicker of hope reignited within her. They were down but not defeated, and as long as they drew breath, they would fight. "Captain Mendez," a voice crackled over the comms, bringing her back to the present. It was Commander Soren from the Mars base, his voice steady despite the situation. "We're ready for your signal. Just give the word." Alara took a deep breath, her mind racing with the weight of the decision before her. But in that moment, she saw not just the faces of her crew, but the collective spirit of humanity, undaunted, defiant, and unyielding. "Prepare to engage," she commanded, her voice echoing through the command center with renewed vigor. "Remember, they may understand our emotions, but they don't understand our resolve. Let's show them what it means to be human." As the countdown commenced, the chaos around her seemed to crystallize into a single, unified purpose. The Empathox had underestimated them, and now, against all odds, they would fight back. The air was thick with the acrid scent of burning orbital debris as the remnants of the once mighty Solar Empire's fleet drifted past the observation deck of the embattled Terran flagship, Dauntless. Captain Mira Albright, her uniform singed and her eyes steeled against the chaos swirling around her, stood at the command console, barking orders through the cacophony. "Divert all remaining power to the forward shields. We can't afford to lose the bridge." Her voice was a lifeline for the beleaguered crew, many of whom were nursing fresh wounds from the latest barrage. A junior lieutenant, his face ashen and streaked with sweat, stumbled towards her, clutching a flimsy data slate. "Captain, the auxiliary power's gone, and the engineering decks are reporting critical failures. We can't hold out much longer." Mira clenched her jaw, feeling the weight of desperation pressing down on her shoulders like a physical force. The relentless onslaught from the rogue faction, seeking to seize control in the Empire's death throes, was overwhelming. But surrender was not a word in her vocabulary. "Damn it," she muttered under her breath, her mind racing through possible escape vectors, each more improbable than the last. "Get me a secure line to Lieutenant Commander Hayes, now." As the communications officer scrambled to comply, the Dauntless shuddered violently, a fresh volley of enemy fire tearing into their aft section. Consoles sparked and sizzled, and Mira could feel the heat of the flames licking at the edges of the command deck. "Come on, Hayes, pick up," she whispered, watching the flickering transmission icon with a mix of hope and dread. When the connection finally opened, it was filled with static and the unmistakable roar of chaos. "Albright, you better have a miracle up your sleeve," Hayes' voice crackled through, punctuated by the sound of distant explosions. "I need you to rig the reactor for an emergency jump. We can't win this fight, but we might be able to regroup at Outpost Delta. It's our only shot." There was a long pause on the other end, and Mira imagined Hayes running a hand through his sweat-soaked hair, weighing the risks of such a desperate maneuver. "Understood. It'll be a hell of a ride, but we can make it happen." "Good. And Hayes, make sure everyone down there knows what's at stake. This is do or die." The line went dead, and Mira turned her focus back to the bridge, where her crew was holding the line with grim determination. "All hands, prepare for emergency jump. This isn't over yet." The Dauntless lurched as the reactor began to build towards critical mass, the deck plates vibrating with the barely contained fury of the unstable core. Mira could feel the tension in the air, a live wire of anticipation and fear. But just as hope began to flicker in the darkness, the enemy fleet shifted tactics, their flagship moving into position for a boarding maneuver. The realization hit Mira like a lightning strike. Their adversaries were not content to merely destroy them. They wanted to capture the Dauntless, to claim its technology and personnel for their own sinister purposes. "Boarding parties incoming," shouted Lieutenant Chen, his hands flying across his console as he tried to reroute power to the internal defenses. "They've breached the hangar bay." Mira's mind raced. The Dauntless was on the verge of a catastrophic jump, and now they faced the prospect of an internal battle that could sabotage their only chance for escape. It was a nightmare scenario, the kind of no-win situation that haunted the dreams of every captain. "Security teams to the hangar bay. Hold them off as long as you can." Mira's voice cut through the chaos with a clarity that belied the turmoil within her. As her orders echoed through the ship, a new voice crackled over the intercom, one that sent a chill down her spine. It was General Thrax, the renegade leader of the enemy forces, his voice dripping with smug superiority. "Captain Albright, your resistance is commendable, but ultimately futile. Surrender now, and I promise your crew will be treated with the utmost respect." Mira snorted derisively. "Save your breath, Thrax. We won't be your pawns. Not now, not ever." Thrax's laughter was a low, sinister rumble. "So be it. But know this, Captain, your precious empire is crumbling, and you stand alone on the precipice." As the line went silent, Mira felt a surge of defiance mingling with her fear. Alone they might be, but humanity was nothing if not resourceful. In those moments of extreme pressure, they had a knack for finding solutions where none seemed possible. The door to the bridge burst open, and Hayes appeared, his uniform torn and his face smeared with soot. "Reactors ready, Captain, but we need to hold this location for another 5 minutes to stabilize the jump matrix." 5 minutes, Mira echoed, as if testing the sound of those words against the backdrop of battle. "All right then, let's give them hell." As the ship shuddered under the onslaught, Mira's mind flickered through the myriad strategies and tactics she had studied over the years. Inspiration struck like a spark in the darkness. "Lieutenant Chen, get me the specs on that enemy flagship. I want to know its weak points." Chen's fingers danced across his console, his face illuminated by the glow of the screens. "Got it, Captain. Their main power conduit runs through the dorsal plating. If we can hit it, we might be able to disable their systems." Mira nodded, her mind already formulating a plan. Helm, get us in position. Tactical, prepare to fire on my mark. As the Dauntless wheeled through space, closing the distance to their adversary, Mira could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on her. The fate of her crew, of the entire empire, hung in the balance. Steady, steady, she murmured, her eyes locked on the tactical display. And then, like a predator pouncing on its prey, the Dauntless unleashed its fury. The ship's weapons systems roared to life, a crescendo of destruction that ripped through the enemy flagship's defenses with surgical precision. The enemy vessel shuddered, its lights flickering as power surged and failed. For a brief, glorious moment, victory seemed within reach. But the universe had other plans. As the enemy flagship spiraled out of control, its dying throes sent a cascade of debris hurtling towards the Dauntless. The impact was immediate and devastating, the ship's hull groaning as it was torn open in multiple places. Structural integrity failing, we're losing altitude stabilization. Chen's voice was tinged with panic, the cool veneer of professionalism cracking under the strain. Myra's mind raced, searching for a lifeline in the chaos. Helm, initiate emergency protocols. All hands, brace for impact. The Dauntless lurched, caught in the gravitational pull of the nearby planet. The ship was a wounded beast, its systems failing and its crew clinging to hope by the thinnest of threads. We're coming in too fast, shouted Hayes, gripping the edge of the console as the ship plummeted towards the surface. As the ground rushed up to meet them, Myra's thoughts were a whirlwind of regret and determination. They had fought valiantly, but the odds had been stacked too high against them. And yet, in that darkest moment, a spark flickered within her, a reminder of humanity's indomitable spirit. Even as the ship hurtled towards its doom, she refused to surrender to despair. All hands, prepare for emergency landing procedures. This isn't over yet. As the Dauntless crashed through the atmosphere, a blazing comet of defiance and fury, the crew clung to their stations, their hearts pounding with the realization that they had reached the precipice of disaster. And in that fractured moment of time, as the world spun and the ship trembled on the edge of annihilation, Mira knew that they would rise from the ashes. Because that was what humanity did best, they adapted, they endured, and they found strength in the unlikeliest of places. The impact was a symphony of chaos, metal screaming and earth shuddering as the Dauntless met the ground. Miraculously, the ship held together, a testament to its crew's skill and tenacity. As the dust settled and the echoes of destruction faded, Mira struggled to her feet, her body aching but her spirit unbroken. Around her, the bridge was a scene of devastation, consoles shattered and debris scattered like confetti. But they were alive, and as long as they drew breath, they would fight on. The enemy might have dealt them a severe blow, but they had not extinguished the flame of hope. As her crew began to stir, Mira surveyed the wreckage with a mix of grim determination and fierce resolve. The road ahead was fraught with peril, but they would face it together. Because that was the essence of humanity, an unwavering belief in the possibility of something better, even in the darkest of times. And as they regrouped amidst the smoking ruins of their ship, Mira felt the stirrings of a plan, a way to turn the tide and reclaim their future. The enemy had underestimated them, and that would be their undoing. Because humanity was not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for a new beginning. And they would not rest until they had claimed it. The solar empire was crumbling, the gleaming bastions of human civilization across the stars dimming like dying embers. The chaos of it was a symphony, a cacophony of despair and fragments of hope clashing violently. Humanity, once masters of their destiny, were now scattered remnants fighting against the encroaching nihilism of an uncaring universe. The Vaxian Armada, an alien force that swept across solar systems with the cold efficiency of a scythe through wheat, seemed poised to eradicate all that remained. On the frostbitten surface of the shattered colony moon of PALLAS-4, a ragtag group of resistance fighters huddled around a decaying hollow projector in a cave that had become their headquarters. The flickering light cast long shadows on the walls, dancing to the tune of the icy winds that howled outside. There was an unsettling beauty to it, a reminder that the universe continued its indifferent dance even as humanity faltered. "We're down to our last thermal detonator," grumbled Captain Alara Quinn, her voice a low rasp that echoed through the cavern. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, scanned the faces of her crew. They were a motley collection of soldiers, engineers, and civilians, each bearing the scars of survival, each with a fire that refused to die. If we're going to make a stand, it has to be now. Stand, spat Jax, a former miner with fists like sledgehammers and a temperament to match. What's the point? We've been battered back to the edge of extinction. The Vaxians have orbital supremacy, their drones control the skies, and we're, what? A handful of fighters with a slingshot? Alara met his eyes, a smoldering anger in her gaze. We're more than that, Jax. We're human, and as long as we draw breath, we fight. A murmur of agreement rippled through the group. Despite the odds, despite the overwhelming power of their enemy, the spirit that had driven humanity to the stars refused to be extinguished. The Vaxians, in their arrogance, believed the fight was over. But they underestimated the depths of human defiance. Miles above the moon's surface, the Vaxian flagship, a leviathan of polished black metal and shimmering energy fields, loomed like a harbinger of doom. Its commander, High Executor Zalver, observed the tactical holomap with a serene confidence. The humans were cornered, their defenses dismantled, their fleets shattered. Victory was assured. It was merely a matter of time. Executor, the resistance on Palace 4 continues to persist, reported one of his aides, its voice a musical chime, devoid of concern. Their numbers are insufficient to pose a threat, yet their persistence is anomalous. Zalver turned his gaze toward the holographic display of the moon. Let them persist, he mused, a hint of amusement in his voice. Their struggle is as futile as a candle against the void. Soon, they will exhaust themselves, and their light will flicker out. Back within the icy heart of the moon, Alara and her crew had devised a plan, desperate, reckless, but the only shot they had. The thermal detonator would be used to breach the Vaxian flagship's auxiliary power relay, a calculated gamble that could cripple their operations long enough to turn the tide. We've got one shot at this, people, Alara declared, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. We infiltrate the Vaxian base camp on the surface, hijack one of their transport ships, and get aboard that flagship. If we succeed, we make history. If we fail, well, at least we tried. The plan was insane, bordering on suicidal, but it didn't matter. In the face of annihilation, insanity was the only currency left. The crew nodded, a fierce resolve settling over them. They were outmatched and outgunned, but they were humans, beings of chaos and ingenuity, born to defy the odds. The operation commenced under the cloak of night. The winds screamed, a baleful symphony that swallowed their movements. They slipped through the shadows, navigating the jagged terrain with the precision of predators. The Vaxian patrols, confident in their dominance, were lax, their arrogance a chink in their formidable armor. It was Jax who led the charge when they reached the base camp, his sledgehammer fists dispatching guards with brutal efficiency. The team moved like a well-oiled machine, each member playing their part in a dance of destruction. It was swift, violent, and over before the Vaxians could react. They commandeered a transport ship, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they ascended toward the flagship. As they approached the behemoth, the reality of their mission set in. The flagship was a city in the sky, a fortress of alien technology and impenetrable defenses. But as the humans breached its hull, chaos erupted within its corridors. Alarms blared, and the Vaxians scrambled to respond to the unexpected intrusion. Alara moved with purpose, the thermal detonator clutched tightly in her hand. The corridors twisted and turned, a labyrinth of polished metal and harsh lighting. The crew fought their way through, a whirlwind of gunfire and determination, leaving a trail of chaos in their wake. They reached the auxiliary power relay, a massive structure humming with energy. Alara set the detonator, her hands steady despite the pandemonium. As the timer counted down, she caught Jax's eye, a shared understanding passing between them. "Get ready to run," she said, a grim smile on her lips. The explosion ripped through the flagship, a shockwave of fire and fury that tore through its innards. The ship shuddered, lights flickering as systems failed and circuits overloaded. Across the moon, the Vaxian forces faltered, their lines of communication severed and their cohesion shattered. In the chaos, Alara and her crew fought their way back to their stolen transport ship. The flagship was a dying beast, its might turned against itself by a handful of defiant humans. As they descended back to the moon's surface, the clouds parted, revealing a sky painted with the colors of an alien dawn. On the surface, the resistance fighters regrouped, their spirits buoyed by the impossible victory. They had struck a blow against the Vaxians, an act of defiance that resonated across the stars. And in that moment, the seeds of resurgence were planted, a testament to human stubbornness, a reminder that even in the darkest hour, hope could be forged anew. High Executor Zalver, aboard a secondary command vessel, watched the unfolding chaos with disbelief. The humans had achieved the impossible, turning their own strength against them. The Vaxians had underestimated their tenacity, their ability to adapt and improvise against overwhelming odds. "Executor, what are your orders?" an aide inquired, its voice tinged with the first notes of uncertainty. Zalver's gaze hardened. The humans had proven themselves more formidable than anticipated, their unpredictability a force to be reckoned with. But this was far from over. The humans had won a battle, but the war was still theirs to lose. "Regroup our forces," Zalver commanded, his voice a steely resolve. "This is but a temporary setback. The humans have shown their hand, and now we will crush them with the full might of our armada." But as the Vaxians prepared to strike back, a spark of hope ignited within the hearts of humanity. Across the fractured colonies and beleaguered fleets, word of the Resistance's triumph spread like wildfire. The humans were not broken, they were galvanized, their resolve tempered by fire and adversity. On Palace 4, Alara and her crew stood amidst the wreckage, their eyes turned toward the stars. They had lit a beacon in the darkness, a rallying cry for all those who refused to surrender. The Vaxians had thought them defeated, but they had only rekindled the embers of defiance. And so, with renewed purpose, humanity prepared to rise from the ashes, ready to reclaim what was theirs. The darkest hour had come and gone, and now, the dawn of resurgence loomed on the horizon. In the heart of the chaos, Alara gripped her weapon with white-knuckled determination, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon where the first rays of hope began to pierce the night. The war was far from over, but they would fight. They would endure. They would prevail, because they were human, and the universe had yet to reckon with the fury of a species unwilling to bow. The Galactic Senate was in chaos, which was saying something for an assembly of creatures that thrived on it. Representatives from planets whose names were unpronounceable by any human tongue had gathered, all of them speaking at once, their voices clashing into a cacophony that could have pierced even the most stalwart eardrums. The holographic displays flickered with a frantic rapidity, each one subtly jostling for prominence. Distressed reports from the outer colonies, economic data plummeting like comets into a black hole, and, most disturbingly, images of human ships breaching interstellar boundaries with a brazen audacity that bordered on suicidal. "They're just humans," snarled Counselor Thrix of the Blorg Consortium, a gelatinous mass that quivered with irritation. "Barely evolved primates who still smear themselves with local mud for fun. Their little rebellion is inconsequential." Across the chamber, the Korvax delegate, a thin, ethereal being whose translucent skin pulsed with a soft bioluminescence, whispered in a voice like wind chimes, "And yet, they have taken 3 sectors in as many weeks, Thrix." Data from the displays whirled around the chamber like a digital maelstrom. "Your fleets are fleeing as though they have seen a ghost." The Blorg seethed, its many pseudopods writhing. "They employ trickery, nothing more. Their ships. They move in ways that defy logic." In truth, it was more than trickery. It was the culmination of human ingenuity, a trait underestimated by the entire Galactic Senate. Humanity's penchant for thinking sideways had never been considered a threat. Now, it was the very weapon that was turning the tide. In the vastness of space, where the laws of physics were considered immutable, humans had redefined the rules, and the universe was struggling to keep up. On the bridge of the ISS Intrepid, a ship of human design that bore the scars of 100 skirmishes, Captain Sarah Harker watched as her crew executed the next phase of Operation Pandora. It was bold, risky, and entirely typical of human strategy. Think of the most insane plan possible, and then make it crazier. "Status report," she barked, her voice cutting through the tension that clung to the air like static electricity. "Phase 1 of the operation completed, Captain," replied Lieutenant Gomez, his hands dancing over his console with the fluidity of a concert pianist. "The decoys are in place. Enemy sensors read them as our main fleet." "Good," Harker said, her eyes narrowing with wolfish anticipation. "What about the gravitic mines?" "They'll activate as soon as the enemy ships are within range. It should create a nice little rift in their formation," Gomez replied with a grin that was all teeth. Harker nodded, satisfied. Remember, people, we're not here to just survive. We're here to win. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. As the Intrepid glided through the star-strewn void, an approaching armada of Senate ships loomed on the horizon like a storm cloud. A standard confrontation would have meant certain defeat for the humans, but this was anything but standard. Hidden among the asteroid field, the human fleet waited for their moment. The first wave of Senate ships, confident in their numerical superiority, closed in on the decoys. Their sensors screamed in confusion as what they thought were human ships flickered and vanished like mirages. Before they could adjust, the gravitic mines activated, distorting space itself and sending the Senate ships careening into one another in a ballet of chaos. Thrix watched the unfolding disaster from the command deck of his flagship, the Pride of Blorg, with disbelief. Impossible, he spat, as his officers scrambled to regain control. No species can manipulate gravitational fields this way, but humans could, and did, with an audacity that defied comprehension. They had developed technology that bent the very fabric of space, not with brute force, but with finesse born of desperation and ingenuity. Meanwhile, the real human fleet emerged from the asteroid field like phantoms. Their ships, retrofitted with scavenged alien tech and improbable modifications, moved with a fluidity that defied the angular, predictable maneuvers of Senate vessels. They weaved through the chaos, targeting weak points with surgical precision. All units, engage, Harker ordered, her voice a beacon of calm amidst the storm. Let's show them what humanity is made of. The battle that ensued was a symphony of destruction, a testament to human adaptability. Where the Senate relied on their superiority in numbers and technology, humans used the environment, leveraging asteroid fields and solar flares with a strategic brilliance that left their foes reeling. The Intrepid itself, with its jury-rigged systems and experimental weaponry, became a spearhead that punched through enemy lines with relentless determination. The tide was turning. For every human ship that fell, 2 Senate vessels were reduced to cosmic debris. The humans, once thought to be on the brink of annihilation, were proving to be far more resilient, and far more dangerous, than anyone had imagined. On the Senate's flagship, panic was palpable. The Korvax delegate, watching the battle unfold, turned to Thrix with an expression that, on a human face, would have been one of dawning horror. "We've underestimated them," the Korvax murmured, its voice carrying the weight of a solemn revelation. "These humans, they're not bound by the limitations we assumed." Thrix, his bluster evaporating in the face of undeniable truth, could only nod. "We must retreat," he conceded, the words bitter as ash in his mouth. "Regroup, rethink our strategy," but it was too late. The humans, relentless and unyielding, were pressing their advantage, exploiting every weakness with a ferocity that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. As the Pride of Blorg shuddered under the impact of human firepower, Thrix realized he was witnessing the rise of a new power in the galaxy. A power that could not be so easily dismissed or subdued. On the Intrepid, Harker watched the retreating Senate ships with a steely resolve. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Humanity, driven to the edge of extinction, had found its strength in unity and innovation. They had become something more than the sum of their parts, a force that could challenge the might of the Galactic Senate. "Send a message to all ships," she commanded, her voice carrying the weight of a new era. "Let them know that this is just the beginning. We are not to be underestimated." As the last of the Senate's ships vanished into the void, the human fleet regrouped, their spirits buoyed by an undeniable truth. Against all odds, they had emerged victorious. The universe had thought them weak, but it was the humans who had turned the tide, reminding the galaxy that even in the darkest hour, light could still break through. The news of the humans' unexpected triumph reverberated across the galaxy like a shockwave, reaching worlds and species that had long dismissed humanity as inconsequential. On distant planets and in secluded star systems, the tales of human courage and tenacity spread, kindling a spark of hope among those who had long suffered under the Senate's oppressive rule. In the days that followed, the Galactic Senate struggled to comprehend the magnitude of their miscalculation. Analysts and strategists labored tirelessly to piece together how a species they had thought of as little more than an upstart had managed to turn the tables so dramatically. Meetings were held, plans were revised, and alliances were forged in a desperate bid to contain the human threat. Yet, amid the chaos, a growing undercurrent of respect and fear for humanity began to take hold. Whispers of admiration for their resilience and ingenuity circulated even among those who had once scoffed at the notion of human competence. The Senate, for all its power and influence, had been challenged in a way it had never anticipated, and the implications were profound. Meanwhile, on Earth, the victory was celebrated with a fervor that transcended borders and united humanity in a way that had not been seen for generations. The triumph was a testament to their shared determination, a reminder that even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds, they could rise to meet the challenge and emerge stronger for it. As the galaxy stood poised on the brink of a new era, the humans were no longer content to merely survive. They had tasted the sweet nectar of victory, and they were determined to secure their place among the stars. The battle had been won, but the war for their future continued, and with it came the promise of untold possibilities. In the days that followed, humanity prepared for the inevitable retaliatory assault from the Senate. They knew that their victory had been but a single battle in a much larger conflict, and they braced themselves for the challenges to come. Yet, even as they fortified their defenses and readied their fleets, they remained undaunted, their spirits unbroken. For the first time in galactic history, the humans had shown their true strength, a strength that lay not in their technology or their numbers, but in their capacity for innovation, their willingness to defy convention, and their unyielding resolve to forge their own destiny. As the stars wheeled overhead, the galaxy watched with bated breath, awaiting the next move in this unfolding drama. The humans had risen from the ashes of their own destruction to claim their place among the stars, and their message was unmistakable. They would not be underestimated, and they would not be denied. Ka-boom! The sound echoed through the vastness of space as the last remnants of the alien armada disappeared into the void, swallowed by the unforgiving maw of a human-crafted black hole. The UEF Vanguard, flagship of the United Earth Forces, stood resolute amid the cosmic chaos, its hull shimmering with the light of a nearby star it had just catapulted like a billiard ball into the enemy's fleet. Admiral Kara Engwin wiped the sweat from her brow, her hands steady on the command console, the cacophony of alarms and cheers blending into symphonic bedlam. "Report," she barked, her voice cutting through the din like a scalpel. "Enemy forces neutralized," Lieutenant Zane shouted from his station, his eyes dancing across the data feeds like a maestro conducting an orchestra. "All systems holding steady, no major damage to our fleet." They didn't stand a chance. Of course they didn't, Kara muttered, a feral grin splitting her face. She turned to the holographic projection shimmering before her. A three-dimensional tapestry of space, colored by the trajectories, velocities, and vectors of every ship, every missile, every micro-particle within 100 kilometers. "We're just getting started." Humanity had been backed into a corner, harried by the relentless advance of the Zixian Empire, a civilization that had spanned countless star systems, their technology seeming as if it were spun from the very fabric of the cosmos itself. They had underestimated the tenacity of humankind, considering them no more than a fledgling race, an upstart species to be swiftly brought to heel. But the humans had a secret weapon: their unyielding audacity, their capacity to adapt, and their insatiable hunger for knowledge, for survival. For in every defeat, humanity learned, in every setback, they innovated. And now, with the solar empire on the brink of collapse, they stood poised to redefine their destiny. "Prepare the quantum artillery," Kara commanded, her voice carrying the weight of 1,000 battles, the hope of billions. "Let's show them what we've been working on." The bridge crew sprang into action, fingers flying over interfaces, their movements synchronizing with a precision that would have been the envy of any Zixian tactician. Quantum artillery, a marvel of human ingenuity, was an experimental technology that blurred the lines between possibility and impossibility, allowing them to bend the very laws of physics to their will. And today, it would turn the tide. Quantum artillery charged and ready, Admiral Zane reported, his voice laced with anticipation. "Target their command vessel," Kara ordered, pointing at the pulsating node of energy on the holographic map, the Zixian flagship, the epitome of their technological might. "Locked on," Zane replied, his fingers dancing across the controls like a pianist in the middle of a concerto. "Fire." The universe held its breath. Light warped and twisted as reality itself seemed to ripple, the quantum artillery unleashing its fury upon the unsuspecting flagship. The Zixian vessel, a masterpiece of alien engineering, found itself at the mercy of forces it could neither comprehend nor withstand. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, with a soundless explosion that transcended the boundaries of space, the flagship imploded, its composite matter unraveling like thread in a cosmic tapestry, its fragments scattering into the void. Silence reigned, a pregnant pause in the symphony of destruction. Direct hit, Zane exclaimed, disbelief lacing his triumph. Their flagship is gone. The bridge erupted in cheers, the crew celebrating the culmination of years of toil, of sacrifice, of relentless ambition. They had done the impossible. They had struck fear into the heart of an empire. But their victory was not yet complete. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Zixians," Ensign Merrill announced, her voice tinged with disbelief. "They're requesting a ceasefire." Kara's eyes narrowed, suspicion warring with exhilaration. On screen, the hologram flickered, and the alien visage appeared, its features inscrutable, its eyes betraying none of the desperation it surely felt. "Humans," it began, its voice a sibilant hiss, "we propose a truce." "A truce?" Kara echoed, her voice hard as titanium. "You invaded our systems, desecrated our worlds, and now you want a truce?" The alien did not flinch. "We misjudged your capabilities, your resolve. We are prepared to negotiate terms favorable to both parties." Kara considered the offer, her mind a whirlwind of calculations, possibilities, the echo of her ancestors urging caution, bravery, defiance. She knew what was at stake, not just survival, but the legacy of humanity, the right to forge their own path among the stars. "Terms?" She laughed, a sound filled with the indomitable spirit of her species. "There will be no terms. You will withdraw from our territories, and you will answer for your transgressions." The alien hesitated, the veneer of superiority cracking, revealing the fear beneath. "You leave us no choice. We will fight to the last." "Then so be it," Kara declared, her voice ringing with finality. "We're not afraid. We never were." The transmission ended, the hologram dissolving into motes of light. Kara turned to her crew, her gaze fierce, unwavering. "Prepare for the final assault. Let's finish this." The UEF fleet surged forward, a tidal wave of defiance, of human ingenuity, determination, and hope. Ships danced among the stars, weaving patterns of destruction and salvation. The Zixian forces scrambled to regroup, to mount a defense against an adversary they had sorely underestimated. As the battle raged, the humans displayed their mastery over chaos, their ability to turn the most desperate situations into opportunities. They deployed drones that shimmered with cloaking technology, swarming enemy vessels like a cloud of vengeful spirits. They unleashed hacking algorithms that infiltrated Zixian systems, turning their own defenses against them. And as the Zixian fleet faltered, as their resolve crumbled under the relentless human advance, the realization dawned upon them. They had not been facing mere primitives, but a force of nature, a species that thrived on adversity, that grew stronger with every challenge. Admiral Kara stood at the heart of this maelstrom, guiding her fleet with the precision of a surgeon, the vision of a prophet. She was more than a leader. She was a symbol of humanity's indomitable will, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times. "Admiral, enemy lines are breaking," Lieutenant Zane reported, his voice filled with awe. "We have them on the run." "Press the attack," Kara commanded, her eyes blazing with the light of 1,000 stars. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of." The final moments of the battle played out like a cosmic symphony, the notes of destruction and creation intertwining in a crescendo of human triumph. The Zixian forces, once so confident, so sure of their superiority, found themselves outmatched, outmaneuvered, outwitted at every turn. And as the last of their ships fell, as the silence of space reclaimed its dominion, the truth became undeniable. The Zixian Empire had fallen, brought low by the very species they had sought to dominate. A hush settled over the bridge of the UEF vanguard, the magnitude of their victory sinking in, the weight of history pressing upon them. Kara surveyed her crew, her heart swelling with pride, with gratitude, with a fierce, unyielding love for the people who had fought, who had dared, who had won. "We did it," she murmured, her voice barely audible, yet carrying the strength of 1,000 voices, 1,000 dreams. The celebration erupted, a tidal wave of joy, of relief, of unrestrained exuberance. Humanity had triumphed against the odds, had written their own destiny in the stars. They had proven, once and for all, that they were here to stay. As the echoes of their victory reverberated through the cosmos, Kara allowed herself a moment of respite, of reflection. She knew that the path ahead would not be easy, that challenges would continue to arise, that the universe was vast and full of unknowns. But she also knew that humanity would face those challenges together, with courage, with tenacity, with the same spirit that had brought them to this moment of triumph. And as the UEF Vanguard sailed through the starry expanse, leading the fleet into a new era of exploration, of discovery, of endless possibilities, Kara felt a profound sense of hope, of purpose. For they were not just survivors. They were pioneers, dreamers, warriors, and builders. They were humanity, and they would not be stopped. The stars awaited them, and they would shine brighter than ever before. In the chaos of battle, Commander Julia Serrano had stood at the precipice of despair. The solar empire was collapsing, its intricate systems of power and control unraveling like a tapestry in the wind. Yet as the dust settled over the ruins of the once imposing imperial citadel, a new world began to take shape, a world forged by humans who refused to be defined by the chains of subjugation. The victory had not come easily. The final assault on the citadel had been a cacophony of clashing steel and roaring engines, the very air charged with the electric tension of desperation. But humanity's resilience had proven unbreakable, the collective will of countless souls burning brighter than the dying suns of 1,000 systems. As the dust settled and the echoes of battle faded, the true scope of their triumph became clear. The imperial citadel, once a symbol of unyielding authority, now lay shattered, its grand spires reduced to rubble. Amongst the debris, the people of Earth and their allies stood victorious, not as conquerors, but as liberators. In the aftermath, Julia found herself standing amidst the wreckage, surveying the remnants of the empire that had sought to vanquish them. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and victory, a potent reminder of the struggle that had brought them to this point. The remnants of the imperial forces had surrendered, their once proud ranks now humbled by the indomitable spirit of a species they had underestimated. Beside her, Takara, the enigmatic alien strategist who had defected to the human cause, watched the unfolding scene with a mixture of relief and solemnity. "It is a sight I never imagined," Takara said, her voice tinged with awe. "To see the empire brought low by those it deemed insignificant." Julia nodded, her eyes scanning the horizon where the first rays of a new dawn began to pierce the sky. "They underestimated the heart of humanity," she replied. "Our capacity to adapt, to fight for what we believe is right. That is what truly sets us apart." The victory had far-reaching consequences, rippling across the galaxy like a supernova. In the wake of the Empire's fall, the myriad species that had once cowered beneath its shadow began to stir. The rebellion sparked by humanity's defiance spread like wildfire, igniting hope in the hearts of the oppressed. Across distant systems, chains were broken, and voices long silenced began to sing their own songs of freedom. Amidst the ruins, humanity emerged as a beacon of hope and possibility. No longer seen as mere upstarts on the galactic stage, they had carved out a place for themselves through sheer force of will. The alliances forged in the crucible of war held strong, now bound by more than necessity. Respect and genuine camaraderie blossomed among the diverse species that had fought alongside humanity, a testament to the shared struggle that had united them. Meanwhile, on the far reaches of the galaxy, the echoes of humanity's victory resonated in unexpected ways. Once imperial worlds, now free, began to rebuild, not as isolated planets, but as part of a burgeoning network of cooperation and understanding. The scars of war remained, but they served as reminders of the resilience and unity that had brought them to this moment. For individuals like Ivan Grigoriev, the grizzled engineer who had become a reluctant hero, the victory was both a relief and a revelation. He had never considered himself a man of destiny, yet the role he played in humanity's triumph had left an indelible mark on his soul. As he worked alongside his newfound allies to repair the damage of war, Ivan found a sense of purpose that transcended the boundaries of species and origin. "This ain't just about fixing engines anymore," Ivan mused, wiping sweat from his brow as he surveyed the bustling repair yards. "It's about rebuilding lives, making sure we all got a future to look forward to." For others, like Arya Chen, the scientist whose discoveries had turned the tide of battle, the aftermath was a time of reflection and growth. Her research, once confined to the laboratories of Earth, now found eager collaborators across the galaxy. The knowledge shared in the throes of war became the foundation for a future defined by collaboration and innovation. "This is what we dreamed of," Arya said, her eyes alight with the possibilities of what lay ahead. "A galaxy where knowledge is shared, where we learn from each other to build a better tomorrow." As the old order crumbled, the new reality began to take shape. The Galactic Council, once a puppet of the Empire, now emerged as a forum for true cooperation, with representatives from every corner of the galaxy coming together to chart a course for the future. Humanity, once marginalized, now held a seat at the table, not as conquerors, but as equals. In the council chambers, voices that had once been silenced by the weight of imperial decree now spoke with newfound authority. Decisions were made not through coercion, but through dialogue and mutual respect. The alliances forged in war became the foundation for a new era of peace, as species that had once been adversaries found common ground in their shared aspirations. For Julia, the path forward was clear. Standing before the council, she spoke not as a victor, but as a guardian of the future they had all fought to secure. "We have proven that together, we are stronger than the sum of our parts," she declared. "This is our chance to build a galaxy where every voice is heard, where every being is valued. Let us not squander it." The council chambers erupted in applause, a symphony of hope and determination that echoed through the vast reaches of space. It was a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity and their allies, a promise that the sacrifices made in the name of freedom had not been in vain. Yet amidst the celebration, Julia could not ignore the price of their victory. The fallen were honored, their names etched into the annals of history as reminders of the cost of freedom. Monuments were erected, not as symbols of conquest, but as tributes to the courage and resilience of those who had given their all for a future they would never see. The galaxy was forever changed, the old hierarchies dismantled, and new possibilities emerging from the chaos. As the dust settled, humanity stood as both a catalyst and a cornerstone of this brave new world. Their story had become a part of the collective consciousness of the galaxy, a testament to the power of defiance and the strength of unity. In the years that followed, the memory of the Empire's fall became a touchstone for generations. The lessons learned in the crucible of war informed the decisions of leaders and citizens alike, guiding them towards a future that prioritized compassion, cooperation, and understanding. As for Julia, she found solace in the knowledge that their victory had not only liberated their own world but had ignited a flame of hope across the stars. Her role as a leader evolved, from warrior to diplomat, as she worked tirelessly to ensure the fragile peace they had once endured. "This is our legacy," Julia reflected, gazing at the stars from the bridge of the new flagship, the Unity. "A galaxy where every being can forge their own path, unshackled by fear or oppression." And as the Unity set sail into the uncharted territories of the cosmos, it carried with it the hopes and dreams of a galaxy reborn. A testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the enduring power of hope. The stars stretched out infinitely before them, each one a beacon of possibility. And as the ship leapt into the vast unknown, the words of an ancient Earth poet echoed in Julia's mind. "We are made of star stuff, destined to explore, to discover, to become." In that moment, she knew that humanity's story was far from over. They were only at the beginning of a journey that would take them beyond the boundaries of imagination, into a future limited only by the breadth of their dreams. And as they ventured into the cosmos, they carried with them the enduring truth that had guided them through the darkness. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not by force, but by the strength of their shared humanity. It was a legacy that would endure, a promise that would light the way for generations yet to come, a testament to the undeniable truth that had brought them to this moment. Humanity, for all its flaws and follies, was indeed the future.